The most stressful thing that I have ever done in my life has been to look after a family of ferrets when I was living in London for a short period and I was missing having animals around. Um, because I guess growing up in India, you're just so used to seeing at least like a cow on the road or a dog outside your house or a cat on the balcony or inside your garbage can. So I did feel very lonely at that time. And I volunteered at a farm and they had two jobs, both of which I had to do. One was clean the pigsty, which is just like a standard joke on anyone who volunteers. You have to clean it, a rite of passage. And the second one was I had to look after ferrets. And there is nothing quite so creepy as elongated rodent-like snake creatures that slither around you
Reptile.
and they love your trousers. Like they love it. They will slither up and make their home here, there, and you're terrified because they're also very delicate. So you
Right.
can't accidentally sit on them or like throw them away or, um, misbehave with them or anything. And then they're carnivorous. So once I was having a bacon sandwich and the grease was left on my hand and it bit me. And, and there were like 9 of them. And I still remember it was so stressful that I and I don't know why, but being responsible for another life, whether it's human or animal or plant, there's a certain level of responsibility that falls upon you. And I didn't want to, well, fuck this up. So I was extremely anxiety prone. I remember calling my mother and crying all the time. And she's like, oh God, another ferret problem in the middle of a meeting. And I did eventually come to deal with it. With a lot of ice cream and a lot of support and a bit of self confidence.
Comfort eating.
Yes, yes. But now looking back, and certainly being a health journalist, seeing what doctors do, and leave aside doctors, just seeing what a scientist or even a nurse or even a guard at a hospital has to go through, seeing what they do, I really am every single time I experience this, I'm in like awe because it's a level of stress I can't imagine. I certainly would love to know how they do it. And this has been like a dream episode for me because ever since I started doing health reporting, stress has been like a number one killer. Everyone is talking stress, 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 stress. And we've had psychologists come and talk about stress. We've had CEOs come and talk about stress. But I wanted to know in a high pressure situation where it's not a ferret, but a human being's life at stake in the surgical unit, how does a doctor cope with stress? So I have with me today somebody who actually I just got a message with a short bio about her, and I was so fascinated. So I had to have her on this episode. She's Dr. Manjula Anagani. Um, she is the clinical director and HOD of the Women and Child Care Unit at Care Hospitals, which is in Banjara Hills in Hyderabad. You get great idlis there. That's about all I know because that's what I did the last time I went. But she also holds the Guinness Book record for removing the maximum number of fibroids, and I believe there are 84 of them. Now, if you've never seen a fibroid, please do pause and take a look at it because these are things that look like they've come out of hell and they vary in sizes. I cannot imagine 84 of those being taken out from someone, that person under anesthesia. I'm guessing there's family, people, friends, it's all this pressure. And she did it. And I really want to know, how have you done this?
Hi, Sonali. It's always a pleasure to be talking to people like you. And thank you for this question. But like you said, in today's time, first thing everybody talks about is stress. But apart from it, also, whenever we say lifestyle, we talk about four things. One is stress, one is diet. Everybody has a say in everything, what you eat and what you do. And the third thing would be the exercise. Are you doing it? We want fitness, we want to do it, overdo it, underdoing it. And the fourth one would be about addictions, which we are talking nowadays. Apart from it, whether we know whether all these things are causing some diseases or not, which is reality, because genetics keeping aside, we have epigenetics which come on to us in the form of all these spore and cause these diseases. See, taking a profession is a choice, whether you want to do it or not want to do it, especially in a healthcare profession, should be your choice. You should not be doing it because your father wanted to do it, or because you think that I would look nice being called a doctor because somebody respects me. Because this is, like you said, a very high stressful job. Why is it so? Being responsible. Sonali herself answered how she felt so much stressed up when she was taking care of Ferret and living lives. And that is something which is very, very important, because we deal with lives. And especially when in gynecology and obstetrics, we are dealing with two lives, mother and the child also. So most of the cases, the girls, they become our friends right from her intermediate times, when they start menarche till menopause. After that, they're continuously with us. So we go along with them in their life. We are their parallel friends for them through life, for a woman. So we are responsible for everything they go through, for right from UTI, from the any disease which they get, to the urinary infections, to not having children, to having children and all. So when somebody comes to us with this, and the expectations are very high, and our woman, Indian woman, younger women, gynecologists take care, there is no question of anybody accepting any side effect, leave alone any complication. So that gives us extra stress, because we have to sort the problem out, especially with fibroids in a young girl, unmarried girl. We cannot remove the uterus. So that is the most common complication of removing fibroids will be bleeding. So we should not have a panic button. We should, if necessary, take a help from others, but blood products should be ready. And then these are the patients who can go into a lot of complications because of the amount of bleeding they have. And we should try to have least amount of anesthesia. Yes, there are going to be added stress. But saying that, we are trained for it in medical college. In those days, today's time, everybody is very gentle, soft, and everybody wants to be working 9 to 4. But our times, like, we used to have 36-hour duties, 48 hours continuous duties. We were really trained, like, tough thing, that this is something which is going to be there, and you have to face it. You have to face life and death. Then we talk about stress, Ms. Sonali. We talk about positive stress and negative stress. And I believe that some amount of stress is very important for all of us to do to our maximum strength, to do anything to the maximum strength, and to come out victorious in whatever we want to do. But what do I mean by positive stress and negative stress is, if it starts affecting our health, it is negative stress. If it is going to help us in coming up with ideas and doing it efficiently, it is positive stress. So I think it's just the way we look at it. And most of us in the surgical field, like I keep telling people, हम लोग तो खून दे के बिना सोते भी नहीं. So for us, it is day-to-day thing that we do surgeries, and it is like, it becomes a everyday thing. So we really have an art of disassociation. We take care of it, just look and do it as if it is some mechanically we are doing. It might sound very this thing for out people who are not in this profession. So for us, it is just a task we are supposed to do efficiently with the least amount of time, removing everything and not saving the uterus, and least amount of blood loss. So what all can we do? Everything runs parallelly. So like I said, art of parallel thinking, art of disassociation. These help us from doing what we
Now, I'm very, very curious about that particular surgery.
Yeah.
Did you know that there were going to be so many fibroids? Or was it like a big giant
Yeah.
surprise after you cut
So
the person open?
right, Sonali. Actually, like, I always believe in destiny. If anybody's destiny, I always tell that, if patient is lucky, they'll come to us. And if we are lucky, they'll go to somebody else. So it's something like that. So this patient came all the way from Karnataka, where she was literally unmarried girl who was literally breathless because she was not able to lie down. She was only going to sit, because that was pressing on her abdomen and the lungs upwards. So because of which she was not able to do her daily activities also. So everywhere she went, they said they'll have to remove the uterus. And she was an unmarried girl. So she was so scared and petrified. So then we do a lot of this awareness thing and CMEs all over India. So when she went to one particular gynecologist, they said, no, you go to Hyderabad and meet Dr. Manjula. She's the only one who can help you. So that's the way she landed up with us. So we were just looking. She was having a uterus of almost 9 months size baby. So it was no place inside the abdomen. It was full. So we made everything ready. We got prepared for everything and we started the surgery, a mini lap, a small 4-5 centimeter, because we cannot give bigger incisions because we don't want adhesions, everything. And then we started doing by a new technique called ascending and decompression technique. So we went on removing and everything was blazed and that. So one of my assistants started posting it in, nowadays it's all social media time, Facebook, about this interesting case in the forum. So then people were asking what is the technique? How did we do? And our anesthetist was like, Madam, your uterus kisi kaam ka aayega kya? I said, yes, you just wait and see. She's going to have a child too. So at the end of it, we had a normal size uterus and patient went on. We did not have to give any blood transfusion also. Everything went on very well. So as this thing, when this case was coming and everybody were discussing, whole of India, so many gynecologists came onto the line and they were asking me lots of questions. I was answering. Then suddenly one person said, probably this will be the world record. I don't think anybody must have done only myomectomy, not removing uterus, so many fibroids. Then we went and looked and we saw that nobody else did it. So that's when we applied and then we got it. So it happened like that. And the girl got married later on and had a child.
Incredible. I mean, what was the largest fibroid that you removed from that surgery, if you remember?
Largest is 10 to 12 centimeter and smallest is 2 centimeters.
Oh, good
So the
Lord.
whole abdomen was full of fibroids.
10 to 12.
Yeah.
And it's like a big ball, right?
Big ball. We
Made
do see
out of
20 to 20, 20 to 20. Like yesterday, we
my
removed
goodness.
around 18 fibroids. The largest was about 17 into 17. Like
17 centimeters.
yes, centimeters.
And then when you take it out,
Yeah.
I'm assuming it's attached to something inside.
It's attached to the uterus inside. No.
So you have to cut every single fibroid
And then
out.
make the uterus normal again. That is like plastic surgery and make it
Good Lord.
healthy enough and strength enough to have a child later on.
You
So
know,
least use of energy sources also. We don't burn the uterus. It's like that.
back in the day, when I was in my 20s, the German government had invited me to the country to tour their health universities. And so I went with a team of Indian doctors and fell in love with one of them. And we had a brief relationship where he was sitting for his MD. And he kept saying all the time, you know, I want to be a gynecologist. You
Right.
know, I want to be a gynecologist. And I was like, why? Why would you want to do that? He said, They get paid the most. It's the
Right.
most stressful
Agree.
job. And it's the most fun because I can see why now after talking to you.
See, remember, on this point, I want to tell you something. Ours is the only field where patient is always happy. You remove a mass, they're happy. You remove a baby, they're happy. Remove uterus, they're happy. And if you decrease their bleeding, they're happy. If you give, when somebody is not having periods, you give periods, they're happy. There is never a patient who is unhappy with us. You make them
That's true.
pregnant, they're happy. You cut the
That's true.
tubes, they're happy. You tell me, when is the woman not happy with their gynecologist?
That is true.
If
And
they
in
have
fact, I had
discharge-
my own gynecologist on
Yeah.
on one of the episodes. She had a 15-year relationship with her.
See,
So yeah.
That's what I said. They're like, we are like families to them. So we
Wow.
travel their life. So
Yeah. When you were talking about, this person having gone to various doctors and some of them said, remove the uterus. So that's something which always becomes a point of contention between me and a lot of friends and colleagues where, very often somebody will come and say, oh, but this doctor said this doctor said that, this doctor is asking for this test. And to me, it's like, why do you expect every doctor to have the same line of treatment? Why do you expect someone might be comfortable with doing what you did? But if someone is not going to be able to do this, cut out 84
yes,
big balls out of someone's uterus, then they would give you what they can do best, right?
absolutely.
And I think somewhere I get very concerned when we start clubbing or expecting all doctors to be these, geniuses, hands of God, even in terms of diagnostics. And this is something, I will tell you, I have done so many blood tests for my hormonal health. I will never ask my doctor, why am I doing this again? I don't care if it takes 3,000 rupees extra. I won't go out with my friends that week. Because for me, it's like, how is she going to know what's inside my body? Like, how on earth, right? It's a murder mystery in a way. The more
True.
data you have, the more you know to make an educated guess for what's going on. So I really, what are your thoughts on this? This is sort of cynicism about, particularly when it comes to diagnostics,
I agree. People forget that 5 fingers are different in your own body. And then they start comparing with others. Unko to headache. A simple point like headache, okay? Because on this point, you have a headache. What are the reasons which can be because of headache? It can be just that you did not eat your lunch, so you can have. Because you went out into hot sun, you can have. You have a history of migraine, you can have. You spoke to somebody you don't like, you can have. You have had a hot discussion with your boss, you can have. It can be because of so many reasons, including cancer. But people want to jump and say, I have cancer because I have headache. And how will a doctor know why is it you're having unless they do such tests? People have to understand that, yeah, unnecessary set tests, nobody is telling you to do. But what is necessary for diagnosis is something, and if your diagnosis is delayed, it is going to affect your health, and that is not acceptable. And you are only going to come back and say, why didn't you do the test? I would have got it done. The simple thing is diabetic test. When we write blood sugar, now it can be normal. After 6 months, it can be you might have turned into diabetic. So you just did 6 months ago. Why do you want now? We don't know. You could have done. You are getting recurrent infections. So recurrent infections are seen in people who turn diabetic or pre-diabetic. So we might have to repeat it. Maybe in the 6 months you did not do exercises. Maybe in the 6 months you have eaten a lot of sweets. You must have precipitated your maybe stress and precipitated your diabetic status. So if we repeat it in 6 months, we repeat it because we want to know because of your condition. People have to understand that.
Yeah, and very often, also, I mean, I might as well just say it, but like I've gone with family members, particularly elder ones, to the doctor, and there's a certain image, that has to be presented even to the doctor. And for me, I guess from the very first time I've been seeing doctors on my own, I've always thought that if I don't tell this person the truth, I'm dying. It's not going to matter what they think of me because I'm binge eating or because, I not worked out today or because, I've not had my medicines. So I do think it's so important to have that relationship with a doctor where you can be completely transparent, and doctors don't judge, do they? Like, will you like look at me and say, oh, she
Absolutely.
gets stressed out so much,
We are,
that's why her hormones are bad.
and we are not priests here. We are not here for that. We are here to treat patients. And also, we have to remember it is age immemorial. People have told you should never lie or not hide anything, not just lying, hide anything from your lawyer and a doctor. So that is
Especially,
something people have to remember.
gynecologists, because I do know this, that when I went in for my cervical cancer vaccine,
Yeah.
they did ask, I mean, she did ask, are
Relationship
you
status.
married, your
Yeah.
relationship status? And the same thing happened to a friend. She got very offended. And I am trying to understand, because I do also see it from her point of view that maybe, that is a private space, but you're looking at it from a moralistic angle. The doctor is seeing it from a medical angle. You need
Yeah.
to know in order to give you this vaccine.
Yeah. So
And
I little subtly make it and say there's a personal question
Mm.
which we need to ask because I have to know. This is one disclaimer I tell and then ask. Were you in a
does it
relationship?
does it get difficult for you when a patient
Really?
turns around and says, why are you invading my
Yeah.
privacy?
See, usually South India, that sort of question will not be there, but there'll be another scenario. If they come with their mother and all, they will lie first, then they come back and say, yes, you understand my point? They say,
I
no, 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 no,
know.
no, no. I said, okay, no problem. And then they say, we talk about rest of the things over. And then later they'll come inside for something else. And they say, I didn't want to tell it in front of the parent. So they will not
Yeah.
cross question and ask us that, why did you ask? You cannot, you have no right. No, because we just put a disclaimer first only. We say, see,
Mhm.
this is your private thing. But then I have to ask you, so I am asking you. And then ask the question. So they don't get offended. But yeah, like I said, they might
Yeah.
lie and then come back and answer.
Yeah. And also, you know, I, I remember the first time I did ultrasound, uterus ultrasound, and was completely unprepared for the rod and all of that. And I remember the diagnostician and my gynecologist really walking me through those steps.
Yeah.
But I've also seen doctors who do not do that. And I understand why, because they're severely overworked, particularly if you go to PHC levels or CHC levels. I mean, that there is that level of, patients coming in. I
Mm.
mean, I don't blame them, nor do I think it's okay. Um, but it is important, isn't it, to
True.
also communicate what's going to happen.
Communication and comprehension both are equally important. So nowadays in the modern type of a places, OPs and all, yes, we do tell them there's a scan, pelvic scan. But if you are not in relationship, it will be abdominal scan. If it is already in a relationship, then we can do a transvaginal where the rods will be there. But they can always, when it comes to uterus and all, best results will be with transvaginal scan because it will be nearer to the uterus. We can find out everything what is necessary. But usually the sonologist, the technician who stays near the sonologist, they are the people who will make them understand and take them. But like you said, in PHCs, when it is overcrowded and all, they take it for granted. Times are changing
Mm.
from last 2.5 decades to now, a huge leap in the way we talk to the patient, attend to the
Mhm.
patient, and the respect to the patient. They have changed a lot. But there's still so much to improve on ourselves.
Now, I met a lady who was going in for ultrasound, uterus ultrasound at a CHC just outside of Lucknow. And she was terrified because she really couldn't understand what was going to happen. And she's not had a baby yet, and so on. And her niece opened Google in Hindi and went onto the AI thing and wrote, "Can you please explain to my auntie what happens in an ultrasound for a uterus?" And there was a detailed diagram, video, information in Hindi. And, that has been amazing.
Shocked.
That
I think that lady must
yes,
have been.
where maybe human beings lack the capacity or the resources to do something, suddenly there is a technology
Yeah.
assistance. But
I
it
think
can
there's
also go
somewhere
the other
in
way, right?
between. The human touch is
Yeah.
equally important.
Yes.
AI will tell you what to do, but I think once that's just a comfortable hand saying that nothing will happen, everything is going to be fine. That is something a doctor or the
Yeah.
nurse can do it. Yeah, you know what is going to happen by AI, and this is the test a doctor has to. Something to bridge the gap is something what we need.
So tell me, why did you become a gynecologist?
Okay, this is a very interesting question because I knew in my fourth class, which when I announced to the people that I'm going to be a doctor, because I was very inquisitive about so many things. I want to know how I am talking when then this thought comes and I am talking the same thing. How is it happening? I want to move my hand and I'm moving my hand. How is it happening? So the teachers clearly told only way you will know is if you become a doctor, and I knew I will be a doctor. Then once in medical college, initially we have these three subjects called anatomy, physiology, and biochemistry. So it is that every human being is born with an innate ability and acquired ability. Okay. So in medicine, if you like anatomy, that means you are more towards surgical field. You like physiology, you're more towards medical field. General medicine, cardiology, neurology, like that. You like biochemistry, more towards analytical thing like radiology, biochemistry. That is innate ability. But you can still do whatever you want. But you'll have to work little more. Learning curve will be more. So I was very good in anatomy. Then I got my distinction in ophthalmology. All these surgical field I used to do very good. Because in my brain, the pattern will fit into that thing. So by the time I came to my final year, I knew I would be a surgical field and surgeon. But then in 1991, 92, when you look around, surgeon for general public is a man, especially for South India. General surgery means a man. Anybody as a surgeon, which doctor? It's a man. So that's the way it was. So when I looked around, I found two lady surgeons there, but literally not there in the sense that their practice is literally zero because no patient would go. Now we need a field. I needed a field where, see, you know something, you might be the best of the surgeon, but if you cannot show it and do it, it's of no use. So where would 50% of surgeries happen in gynecology? Because 50% of population is women. And maximum number of surgeries in the world are either cesarean or uterus removal. These are the two commonest surgeries happening. So, and then when we looked around, I knew there's a lot of lacunae and awareness. Lot of lacunae in people not knowing about minimal access surgery at all, and lot of lacunae in people not knowing about alternative methods of treatment apart from hysterectomy and cesarean. Then I knew I have to take a field where surgeries can be completely innovated, changed, and the new era of minimal access surgery can be introduced, and said that because we are all moving towards the nuclear families. We are no longer joint families, and people cannot come from villages or somebody and stay with us for months together when you're getting operated. We need to get back to our careers. We need to get back. So that's where in 94, 93, I said, I'm going to be a gynecologist where 50% or more than 50% would come to me for their surgical problems, and I'm going to change the scenario of surgical thing. And I'm lucky in that I could do it. I could achieve it. We started minimally invasive surgery in 97, 98. We worked on ergonomics of women to start off with our own port placements, and fought with literally men saying that this is the way it has to be done. So we worked on so many newer innovative things, Mullerian anomalies, Sanagani techniques, everything to make only two rules in surgical field: safety of the patient, comfort of the surgeon. ऐसा करके नाक पकड़ने का, ऐसा करके नाक पकड़ने का, वैसा. It's not that. It has to be a reproducible technique when you start innovating something, and it has to be done by many people, safest to the patient, and cheapest to the patient also. So that's how over so many years we came up with newer innovations in so many techniques, went on doing training, teaching people, getting trained every time any new technology comes. So we have our own robotics, we have our own newer techniques into it. So I knew some people are lucky that their profession and passion are the same. And for me, my profession, my passion, my purpose, everything is same.
It's so fascinating, because I can't even look at blood coming from an
Yeah, yeah.
animal.
Animal.
I can't imagine, like, just looking at what fibroids look like. I can't imagine touching one, let alone cutting through skin. So it's really fascinating how,
Everybody is
different
different.
human beings have,
Yeah.
different capacities. What's normal to you is
Yeah.
completely
All
frightening
of
to
us
me.
have this little dyslexia towards any other subjects. It's like Greek and
Mhm.
Latin. Everybody use the word, oh, this is Greek and Latin to me. So it's like
Yeah.
that. So when it comes to
Yeah.
geography, it's like that to me. There
Yeah.
are people who will know the roads like this. You will go once, they will know where it is. For me, the same road I go 100 times, I have to put GPS to go on 101 time also. So for me, it is like that for geography and cooking. So each
You
to
know,
their own.
we've seen, and I think in the
Yeah.
last 1 year, younger doctors and their struggles. As they've been in the news because of what happened with the exams, then what happened in Calcutta with the
True.
resident
True.
doctor.
Oh my
There's
God.
been a lot of spotlight and a lot of young doctors coming out and sharing their stories, and it's a very unique grind that you're going through. Whereas, I might have gone to Delhi University and spent 3 years studying, but I would have had time to go out having fun and, learning new things with friends and a social life. Um, your field
Yeah.
requires a lot more commitment. It means at least for 10 years, if not more, you're
More.
glued
More.
to the
Till then.
books more. So MBBS gets over, then you have the stress of ND, then you want to specialize and
Fellowships.
you start off, and it's a difficult thing to go through. And I guess, I mean, I don't know what it was like during your time when you went to college med
That's
school,
more worse.
but maybe, but we
Because
didn't know about it because we
yeah,
didn't have the internet and we
yes.
didn't have, this sort of flow of information. But we do know now. And since you've come out of it and you are in a stable place and a place of peace, what would you give as some sort of insights or experiential advice to someone who's starting off?
In today's time, the world is in your hands, Sonali. Means I mean to say that social media is there, so you don't have to go to library. In those days, when I said it was difficult because after our thing, we have to go sit in the library, take out books, write notes. That is not necessary now. You have Chat GPT or AI telling you that. So your time, the thing you are, is come down. So what I want to tell is make utilization of all these things which have come. So for me, if anybody has to be successful in any field, there are 6 T's. One is technique. You learn your technique. Nothing comes like that. You have to take a mentor and learn your technique. See everybody, whatever you want to do, and take whatever suits you. Second would be technology. Technology in the form of it can be ChatGPT, or in medicine, there's so many things which keep changing. Like robotics comes now. Next, microscopic something. Maybe Tesla is coming up with the chip in the brain. Link. What link is it? Um, some link. No, Neuralink. Sorry. So
Neuralink,
Neuralink.
yes.
So where we
Yeah.
can think of the thoughts and we can understand that and everything. So and technology comes, take it along. They are like, without taking the technology and you want to be laying back, then you're not doing justice to the patient. Patient needs the best. So that's important. So third one would be learning, teaching, that is training. So whichever technology comes, train yourself the best in it. Don't be substandard. Don't do little bit and then think that you give the best results. No, that is important. Fourth would be a teamwork. If you really want to have a personal time, do a teamwork. Together, you all become a group. And when you're going, your patients should never be distracted or never be not taken care of properly. So somebody responsible should be taken care. They should not be worried. My doctor is going out of station. Who will take care of me if I'm ready for delivery or whatever? So that is very important. And then comes, teaching. The more you teach, nothing should stop with us. You have attained as something at Zenith. You need to teach to the next generation how they have to do. And they should learn, because it's not that AI is not going to come and teach you whatever it is. Your hands are hand holding and teaching the technique on a simulator, on a tissue, is something you have to do. And finally, the temperament is very, very important. We are still women. We also have PMS. We also have menopause syndrome. But then when it comes to this profession, people cannot accept us snapping or even doing anything. So that is the most difficult task, that is temperament, because sometimes it really comes onto the nerves. Like you said, difficult patients, difficult attendance. The mother will come with a teenage daughter and she wants everything. She talks. She will not allow the teenager to talk. And she wants everything to know, why did my daughter get this? Why is she not improving with this? So that becomes very difficult. But these are very
And,
important. I would tell the next generation to understand that.
this episode is one of the reasons I wanted to be a journalist, because I always wanted to be the medium for information, and particularly um, accurate or insightful information that someone can use. And so, thank you so much for coming and
Thank you,
sharing everything
Sonali.
you have. It's been
Pleasure.
lovely. Thank you. You guys listening, if you've enjoyed this episode and you've gained something from it, then please leave us a rating. We're there on every audio streaming channel available. And if there's a particular health topic that you want to know more about, or a health experience you want to share, then you can write to us. We're there at pods@indiatoday.com, or you can message us on 8588966996.